Hey everybody, and welcome to the Elseworlds Exchange. Joining me is the very patient and amazing Jason Inman of Jawiin and DC All Access. Thanks for being here, man.
Hi everybody, thanks for having me, Sal.
Anytime, and multiple times, why not? But
and YouTube.
Yeah, man, all right. But hey, today we're going to talk about in light of Secret Empire and the huge upset, people have the fact that Steve Rogers is Hydra and he's an evil guy, even though he feels real bad about it.
That A stands for Hydra now.
Yeah, A is for Hydra. I think I remember reading that book, or having that book read to me when I was a child.
Yep.
It might explain my dyslexia. So, today we're going to talk about other instances in which heroes became villains, and maybe espouse about how long that lasted, or how we felt about it, or if we remembered it, because Jason hit me with this idea, and I'm like, "This is gold." And then I was like, "Okay, I gotta look and see if I can remember
It's a lot
instances.
more than you think.
Oh, it was. Yeah. I was like, "Oh yeah, oh my god!" And then just flooded back to me. I'm like, "Okay." But yeah, so today we're gonna talk about heroes turn villains, and I guess we should start with the ones that we just remember, where we're just like, "Okay, this guy."
Well, do we want to start with because there's multiple ones right now.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about a little bit about Captain America?
Yeah, let's break the ice by chatting a little bit about the current status quo for Captain America and where we kind of led up to Secret Empire and how we're there now. Because you just finished reading it, the first issue.
Yeah, I finished reading Secret Empire 1 right before this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I think it's very reactionary to what's going on in America right now. I'll just say that when about a year ago, and they talked about, there was that big reveal, it was Captain America #1, right?
Yeah.
And he kidnaps the plane, and it's Hail Hydra, and the internet lost their heads.
Right.
I actually was fine with it because I was like, all right, I'm gonna see where the story goes, because this is not the first time that we've seen a hero turn evil. Even Superman has turned evil, and we have an instance that we're gonna talk about that in this too.
Yes.
But as this story has gone along, Nick Spencer has kept introducing these cosmic key cube things that keep complicating the storyline.
Yeah.
And I think I wonder if he's lost sight of what this story is going to be about, because now I feel it's about him really just trying to tell a metaphor about America right now.
Right.
Whereas when he started the storyline, I think he was just trying to tell the classic comic book storyline of, this is what happens when a hero loses their way.
Right. I mean, I think that the Cosmic Cube changing of Steve Rogers was always, at its inception, that's always the one thing that you need in order to make Steve Rogers a bad guy, because you could always just have Steve. I mean, we've seen many times Steve Rogers being like, listen, I am Captain America, but the state of America makes me kind of really regret it, and so I'm gonna this and become nomad, or I'll be the captain, or U.S. agent or something. He's abandoned the mantle of Captain America. This is this is a fundamental change where he's no, I am Captain America, but America needs to be Hydra because I was raised as a Hydra agent in this new alternate reality that I'm from. That in and of itself can be a cool concept and a great premise, but I think that the amount of vitriol that Spencer has been enduring, and the amount of just rage and blind non-comic book context that they're coming from, has forced him, whether it's voluntarily or subconsciously, to alter the story and instead react to all of this. Because it's really he could just live in a vacuum and say, yeah, no, I'm telling the story, don't worry, he's gonna be back to normal and whenever. But every time that he comes out and talks about it, he always says something no, history has changed. The world is different now. The Nazis did win World War II, and then we used the Cosmic Cube to change it. Everything's different. And then he went ahead and with what's it called? With this new issue of Secret Empire, now we got Avengers who are also changed and evil. And it's not enough that he changed Captain America. He's oh, if you think you're pissed because I changed Captain America, well, get ready.
Change all of them. Yeah.
Because now Thor's on my team and stuff. Okay, all right, Nick.
Yeah, it's too bad, because he sadly, the thing about it is I think he kind of dug himself into this hole that I don't think he's gonna be able to get out of. And see, because that's the point. It's interesting. Like I said, I was totally down with this storyline until they introduced the thing of yeah, the Nazis actually won World War II, and that's the point where I was like, come on,
Yeah.
really?
Well, and it's
Like-
it's more complicated. It's so frustratingly complicated because it's like,
Yes.
okay, it's the
Well
way
said.
that we normally, like, history is history, but then they use the Cosmic Cube to change history so that the change is that the Nazis really did win, but America used the Cosmic Cube to change that reality, and it's like, how about you rip your head out of your ass and just decomplicate the story a little bit, because this has gotten really overtly confusing and almost like deliberately so to give people a reason to be pissed.
And now, because it's so complicated, we all know that the way that the story is going to end is that there's literally going to be probably little to no consequences for Captain America, because they're just going to rewrite reality with the Cosmic Cube.
Yep.
And that's why you want to do a story like this. This is why you turn a hero bad, because you want to see the complications of, like, what happens when they go back to being a good hero. That was one of the things that made Hal Jordan turning into Parallax
Big time.
so good, because then when he came back into the DC universe, Batman didn't trust them for like 2 years.
Oh no, and actually in Green Lantern Rebirth, I had a problem with them saying, yeah, actually, Parallax was really responsible for most of the things that Hal Jordan did. I was like, no. Like, you did all this character work for Hal Jordan where, you know, you thrust on all this stress. He went bad, and then he's trying to redeem himself. He sacrifices his life. Then he comes back anyway, and he's like, I did all this shit, but I'm still at the core a decent guy. And it's like, yeah, like, do that. Don't say that an alien space virus infected his spirit and made him more susceptible to fear and evil. Like, that's, I don't know. I felt like it was just lazy.
I get what you're saying, because, like, as a Kyle Rayner, like, Green Lantern fan, like, I love Hal Jordan being the villain of that first arc is so amazing.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying, but I also, just from a story standpoint, there's no way you could bring Hal Jordan back.
No.
And make him a hero without doing that.
Well, that's fair. And I did
you
say...
have to give him an out.
Yeah. And I have said, like, by the way, making it Parallax is a perfect retcon. Because
I agree.
Because John's paid attention to continuity, and, like, I mean, listen, a perfect retcon for me is when you use existing continuity and take a thread that wasn't explored and then, like, exploit it. In this case, I feel like, you know, Johns did just invent a Parallax like, he was like, no, there's this monster that I just invented that is the convenient problem solver. That's like, so it's not quite perfect, but it is still a solid retcon because everything worked, and it was still solid. It was still a fun story.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, he achieved his goals, and I still was entertained, so that's a success.
Yeah, and he kind of got it both ways. Do you have any other heroes turned villains that you said you just stumbled that there were a couple that you had forgotten about?
I mean, you know what occurred to me recently was Iron Man from Civil War was kind of a villain. Like,
sort of, yeah.
I mean, here's the thing: is that Miller, in no uncertain terms, painted Iron Man as a sympathetic character. So at least in the context of the Civil War Core series, you know, he's just a dick, and the rest of everybody else who wanted to tell stories about that were like, yeah. Even though he was justified in his own mind and by his peers, you know, he does kind of fall from grace a little bit. And there are other times when Tony Stark has turned evil. In fact, there was another time before that when he legitimately turned evil. I think it was as a result of some magic, or
it was a result because of Kang.
Yeah, Kang the Conqueror. There you go.
And it was the idea that Kang had supposedly manipulated him ever since Avengers, like, number 5.
Yes.
Yeah, and then so they had to they were like, well, who can beat Tony Stark? Teenager Tony Stark. And
how about the darkest point in Tony Stark's history ever by doing the teenager
I think it's called
story.
The Crossing.
Yes, The Crossing. Right? You're totally right. You know what's funny? It's not too dissimilar from it now, in as much as because it really is time travel. Like, they go back in time, and like a Hydra agent saves Captain America and his mom or something like that, and so they recruit him. It's not too dissimilar from The Crossing in this case, where it's like he's always been evil. That's true.
It's not a bad idea. Yeah, it's not bad. You know, there's another one that I had forgotten about. I had completely forgotten about Daredevil and Shadowland.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Remember that?
And that's not even the first time the Daredevil went bad. I remember when he took over for the Kingpin, and he's like, "I'm not evil. I'm just controlling crime." But Shadowland is where he legitimately he kills Bullseye, and he's like,
and they turned it into an event.
Not like kind of a mistake.
Daredevil takes control of the hand.
Yep.
I like his. I always liked his Shadowland costume because that's kind of like the Daredevil costume that we have right now, where it's like black. It's inverse. I kind of like that costume. The idea of that event is really good, and like when you're reading Daredevil before, then that's the excellent Ed Brubaker run, and it's really cool. But the problem is that they do what you were talking about with Parallax. That they explain that like he's possessed by the beast of the hand.
Yes.
So there's no consequence, and it falls apart.
Yeah, it does completely fall apart because Matt Murdock, like, kind of snapping is not just believable. It's practically a character trait for that guy at this point. So
it happens every story.
Yeah. So yeah, like, you don't need to make it that he killed Bullseye. You know, he's not slaughtering people in the streets. You know, he killed a serial killer who murdered his girlfriend/wife. Like, you can forgive him killing Bullseye. Spider-Man could eventually get over that. By the way, apropos this like Cosmic Cube thing, I was just thinking like they have. I know that Spencer said they're not going to do a Cosmic Cube like switcheroo or something like that. But
has he said that?
I think he said something to that effect. But like,
I think get out of that story. Anyways, continue.
Infinity Gauntlet or something probably. You can use the time gem or something.
Yeah.
I mean, but like, here's the thing: is that Captain America is not going to be convinced by a rousing story of power and responsibility from Spider-Man. Like, there's not going to be like a character reason why Captain America like fixes everything. Man, that story. 8 months, the whole country is like teaching kids like indoctrination. Like, come on. Anyway. Let's move on.
Well, it's the other thing too is like by skipping that jump, you basically tell us that like America like folds pretty quickly.
Yeah, we could break real easily, and it's like no.
Yeah, which is kind of something that also happens. I've heard some people complain about the Handmaid's Tale that's on Hulu, which I haven't seen, but it's kind of the same thing where there's like a terrorist attack, and then America like just folds over and it's like, yeah, let's do this thing for a while.
Right. Yeah, we're like this now.
I don't know. It's interesting because again, it's a good. All of these. The interesting thing about it is that all of these are good story reasons, and none of these turning these heroes into villains are bad story reasons. It's the problem is that how do you do the return to when they become a hero?
It has to be a legitimately earned, cool, like character reason. Here's a lazy one. It was a cool concept, and then Jean Grey the Phoenix, right? Like, Jean Grey's a good person. She's infected by a monster. We get it. Like, that's totally, and she destroys a planet, and then she dies. And I think the idea was let's keep her dead. And then they were like, oh, we can't do that. So then they made it into she was a clone body. Like, you have the Parallax excuse. She was infected by a monster. Like, you don't need to kill her and then say that she was never her to begin with. Like, you don't need all that crap. But it's one of the first times I was thinking of, like, where they just did that. Where they're like, no, like, she was fake. And it's like... It
was this fake thing.
That sucks. And it sucks to the point where when I was a kid, I always just assumed... No, I forgot about the Madeline Pryor situation entirely, and was just like, no, it's just that she was infected by the Phoenix, and then and then they killed the Phoenix, and she was left alone, like she was fine, like and she just had to get used to it, you know, she had to get used to the fact that she was the conduit through which they ultimate destruction was achieved.
Well, it's interesting because we also have you bring up an X-Men thing made me think of this. We also must have an opposite with what Magneto does at the end of Grant Morrison's New X-Men.
Yeah.
So Magneto gets addicted to this super drug and basically destroys New York.
Yes.
So he, you know, but then later, like the next storyline, they do this storyline where Excalibur picks up, and Magneto's good, and Magneto's like, well, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. That was Charles.
Yeah.
Or no, it wasn't me. It was like that was a clone or whatever. You know, that wasn't me. And then they like did that whole bad Zorn ripoff, where they tried to say that Zorn was the Magneto. and you're like, that's terrible. Just hold with it, Magneto. Magneto's the villain. Let him be the villain.
Right. Well, because we know that we're going to make Magneto a good guy, inevitably.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen Marvel ever hedge their bets the way they did with Magneto.
Yeah.
Like, you could just say, crazy. I mean, every time that Magneto's ever an X-Man, they always have somebody say, wasn't he a terrorist? Doesn't he kill people? And they're always like, yeah, but he's trying to do good. You could still have that be the argument. You don't need to have it be like, oh, no, he was a clone, or he was mind-controlled, or something like that. Like, no, Magneto's an asshole, and he thinks the ends justify the means, and sometimes he's, like, trying to make good, and sometimes he does, and, whatever. But no, it's weak.
Yeah. Another one that I was looking through with these lists and stuff like that is I completely forgot about Mary Marvel.
Oh, God.
You remember Mary Marvel around Final Crisis? And they did that terrible Countdown miniseries, and they gave her this black S&M outfit and everything.
Yep.
And
they made her all sexual for no reason, and it was like,
yes,
yeah. I didn't even honestly I was aware of Mary Marvel. I didn't know anything about the character except what she looked like, and then how she was portrayed during Final Crisis.
Mm-hmm. You didn't know anything before that?
I never really liked the Marvels. I never really had any respect for the Marvel family lineage, so I was just like, whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was a crazy one. And then also you got to think about somebody brought this up in the comments. Ultimate Reed Richards.
Yes.
Now, it's weird because I like and also hate this at the same time.
Yes.
Because I actually really do like the first 30 issues of Ultimate Fantastic Four. I love it when it's Bendis and Miller. I love it when Warren Ellis takes over, and then I love it when Mark Miller comes back and introduces Marvel Zombies.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I think it's just a good time. And then I can't remember the writer that took over after that, but then Bendis did that. It was Ultimate Doomsday or something like that. And Ultimate Doomsday was where it was all these weird villains were attacking the Marvel universe.
Yes.
And they revealed him that he was mad that Sue left him behind.
Yeah.
Or Sue broke up with him. And you're just oh, this is crazy. Why? But it's weird because I hate it because it makes Ultimate Reed Richards a baby. But at the same time, you're kind of Reed Richards as a villain is kind of interesting.
Yes, I was actually, I never really enjoyed the Ultimate Fantastic Four, but I jumped on during that event because, for whatever reason, I think Spider-Man was involved. And I jumped in, and I was kind of taken aback by the switches that the really big shakeups and upsets they were doing with like Ben Grimm. He gets cosmic powers, and he loses his rockiness, and then and Reed is just hey, you dumped me effectively, so now I'm out and I'm gonna turn evil. And I'm like, okay, I'm in for this. Mm-hmm. The change in Ultimate Reed Richards, I think, was a legitimate growth of the character. Maybe not in the right direction, but it was still it was one of those things where people love the Maker so much now, and I think you need that. You need that story. You need to be yeah, he has superpowers, he's super intelligent, and sometimes a really bad breakup will make you turn evil.
And invade another dimension and send demons after your friends and your ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, and you're just a monster.
You're okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I like that idea that if it weren't for Sue, Reed would be a dick. Even more so than before. And it's yeah, okay, I'm down. And him being, I just think it's a really cool concept. I like how that turned out for him. But
somebody else also keeps bringing up the idea of the whole Axis event.
Oh my God!
Which is very interesting because we think about that. I'd forgotten about that event because it's forgettable.
It's so horrible and it's easily forgettable. But that whole thing is predicated on good being bad. I mean, I forgot to mention Iron Man in that case, where he's kind of become the superior Iron Man.
Yeah, irredeemable Iron Man.
Yeah.
And then oh God, Sabretooth. The problem with that is that they didn't keep any of them on the other side. They didn't. I think Sabretooth flipped, and that's it. But otherwise,
I had heard
flipped.
I had heard that Havoc managed to maintain or preserve being an evil person, but
interesting.
But then they forgot, or they didn't care. But because then the world got destroyed, in Secret Wars, and they could basically say like anything that we didn't like, we just made go away.
Yeah, we didn't care. Like, and suddenly Miles Morales is here. Yay!
Yeah, like, well, Superior Iron Man, they didn't actually fix Superior Iron Man. They didn't make him not inverted anymore. It's just that and when we came back, he was like, we fixed it.
Oh, really? So he goes into Secret Wars as the Superior Iron Man?
Yeah, it's just that nobody like he doesn't actually do anything in Secret Wars, besides die. So.
Yeah. And like talk to his ultimate version self.
Yeah, I think that at the beginning of Secret Wars, like Cap and Iron Man die fighting each other, like just punching each other. It's really cool.
I did not know that.
That's awesome. But yeah, Inverted Heroes, like, I'm sorry, I'm just having Axis flashbacks.
Oh man, Axis is like, and it sucks for Axis because Axis like was supposed to be like the culmination of Uncanny Avengers,
yes.
Rick Remender's Uncanny Avengers, and Rick Remender's Uncanny Avengers is a great run. It's a lot of fun, some great art.
Yes.
But then when it leads to Axis, you're kind of like, man, this goes nowhere.
And then, well, and it betrays the fallacy of the Avengers Unity Squad. Like it could not do anything but divide people, and everybody was like unhappy and miserable. Like the best thing that ever happened to the Avengers Unity Squad was Captain America leaving. As it turns out, it actually really fixed everything. Because I read the first 2 volumes of Ultimate or Uncanny Avengers and was like, whew, this is a rough book. Like there's a lot of poor decision making happening here. I
thought it was like crazy cosmic-y, like just fun stuff. So
yeah, I was
able to roll with it.
With respect to the team, I was like, this team is like, man. But yeah, it is the culmination. Like Axis should have been like where Uncanny Avengers ended. Because it all leads up to Red Onslaught.
Yeah.
And the inversion. Which Sabretooth is a funny character you mentioned because he started out bad, then flipped to be good. And then I guess he's bad again. I don't really know.
How do you feel about Cyclops?
Okay.
Let's talk about Cyclops.
Cyclops, like I always feel bad for Cyclops because nobody but a few people know how to write for him. And
that's right.
If you get bored with him, which you easily could, because like Bryan Singer got bored after 2 movies.
I mean, talk about 1. He's barely in 2.
That's true. He literally fights his wife, and that's it. And
yep.
and loses. But yeah, Cyclops. If you don't know what to do with him, you turn him into a villain, and that's I fear that's what became of Cyclops. I don't know. I must admit that as a like casual X-Men fan, I always marginalize Cyclops as well. I didn't. Like I like Cyclops. Cyclops is actually one of my favorite X-Men characters. And the reason why is because, and again, it's my same frustration, I think, what you're talking about, is that you're right. Like, there are a lot of writers don't know how to write him. Well, or they're not interested in writing for him. They're like, I don't care about Cyclops. I want to write about Wolverine and Storm and like do some cool things with them.
Exactly. And it's funny because I think Matt Fraction is one of the few writers that actually figured it out.
Yeah.
Because like he made Cyclops kind of grow up to be like the son of the 2 fathers, like the son of Magneto and the son of Xavier. So he's like half Xavier, half Magneto.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you read Avengers versus X-Men, and I have a lot of problems with that storyline simply because it's like any of these storylines where they make the heroes fight against each other. One of the sides has to basically not act like themselves to make the story work.
Yes, and I think that's X-Men because.
Well, see, to me in that storyline, it's Captain America.
He is a dick
Captain
for no
America's
reason.
An uber dick in that storyline.
It's so weird because he's just like, hey, you better do this thing, and we're gonna make you. And I'm like, what from history has ever taught you that this is a good idea?
Yeah, like Captain America shows up to the sovereign mutant nation and says, "Give me hope," and Cyclops is like, "Why?" And Captain America's like, "'Cause I said so." And that's his only explanation. And so I'm like, you know what? That's why, like, for a long time, I proudly wore my Cyclops is right shirt because I was like, he is right.
Right. Yeah. I think that's where they started with the Cyclops is right thing because he wasn't wrong in as much as you need to have a conversation first, at least about what to do with her. But at the same time, the leaps in logic for that book were astounding. He
only turned into the villain for me when he turned into the Phoenix, and that's when he started doing the stuff and what kind of like you were talking about with Jean Grey. But it's funny because even after AVX, and they did, which was the first time Marvel Now happened.
Yeah.
And they did that Uncanny X-Men run where he was basically the leader of the Brotherhood.
Right.
If you read that run, in that run, he's not a villain either.
No.
But everybody treats him like a villain. Like, he's just kind of like, look, I'm just going to train these kids in the Weapon X facility. Leave us alone. And then he attacks a bunch of Sentinels that are eventually you learn that were controlled by S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
So again, it comes back to Cyclops was right.
Yeah, he was right to fight the Sentinels. Well, and else, I always had I loved the exploration of that world where they were like, oh, let's park some Sentinels on the lawn at Xavier's and put them under surveillance. And I'm like, I like where we are. I don't like that it happened or the implications, but I liked that we explored that, and I thought that was really cool. Mm-hmm. And Cyclops was right. Like, the dude has been backed into a corner so many times and so often.
Yeah.
Like, we give allowances and apologies to Daredevil every time he has a bad day and then
or just a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, he has a nervous breakdown every 10 minutes, and the dude's like. And every time they're like, well, Matt, you better watch it. Like, listen, Matt has a hard life. Like, Cyclops has a rough time. He's part of a dying race of people. He's part of a weird situation. I was just thinking about mutant kind and how it's like, man, if you treat it all like one continuity, like in the 90s, you couldn't walk without tripping over a new mutant. Like, it was part of, we are the next step. We are moving forward. Like, we are the future. And then after the Marvel deal and Fox and everything, they're like, oh, actually, we're part of like a dying breed, and like one of our own ruined half of us. And it's just like, if you remember the highs and you're living through the lowest of lows, like, yeah, you're backed into a corner, man. Like, Cyclops has no choice. But then, after AVX and after the Phoenix thing, writers, I think, were lazy enough to just take that opportunity to go, no, he's a bad guy now, like, or at least he looks like a dick, so like, let's just go forward with it.
And then they got to a point you could tell where they didn't want to write the bad guy Cyclops anymore.
Yeah.
So they did Death of X and just killed them off in like one of the most pointless deaths of all time. Oh my
god, yeah. Completely.
And now all we have is young Cyclops, because you could tell at a certain point they were like, we only want to deal with these young X-Men characters, which to me completely. By the way, I'm gonna pitch another Elseworlds exchange right now.
Okay.
How broken are the X-Men? They are so beyond broken right now.
Yeah, you need because in this world right now where we got like 12 new X-Men titles and like 11 and a half of them are terrible.
Yeah.
You need another reboot.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like reboot them, like start over from scratch, but like
I do.
I mean, would you do time travel and just go fuck it?
I don't know, man. To be honest with you, I mean their history is so convoluted right now.
Yeah.
And it's made up. Most of the X-Men is time travelers right now.
That's true.
And that does not compute with the mission of the X-Men in the first place.
No.
So I don't know. I would just start from scratch, like year zero, and we go from there. Like, because it is so. I don't think you can put a Band-Aid over this like bleeding wound.
No, I mean, well, yeah. I actually just read Uncanny Avengers today. I think it's the last issue. Is it over?
Is it? I don't know.
It felt like it was over. But
see, when they put Deadpool in that title, that's where I jumped out, because I was like, Deadpool is not a team guy, guys.
Nope. Well, he is now. He's the new Spider-Man.
Yep, we got to get him to sell titles. So here's Deadpool and everything.
Yeah, I actually really liked the first issue I picked up because it was Spider-Man, Deadpool, and like Quicksilver in the worst Quicksilver costume I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. And they were like, Spider-Man's on the team, and he goes, Deadpool's on the team. Bye. And he quits the team. Yeah. And I'm like, right on. That's how I feel. So I quit the book too.
Yeah.
But
it's pretty bad.
But in Uncanny Avengers, in the last issue, we go into Cable's mind, and Strife is there. Yeah, you remember Strife.
Yeah, I thought he was dead.
Yeah, he is. Strife is. It's not really Strife. It's like all of the embodiment of Cable's worst fears of becoming Strife in a person. But
that makes sense.
Yeah,
right.
But that reminded me of X-Men and continuity and how it's like, there's, even if you were to reboot it, somebody, probably Chris Claremont, would do a story where like someone from the past or the future or an alternate reality would show up and screw everything up. I mean, you got Rachel Summers or Rachel Gray, and you got like Cable and Strife and Bishop and like.
And that's not always a bad thing. I will say this, that like a time travel story with the X-Men is not a bad thing.
No, it's true. I mean, it makes them. It's like space.
I love Cable, actually. I really do like Cable quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that ever since the 90s, and Cable's the one I blame for it, even though I love Cable, Cable started this trend of all these apocalyptic futures of the X-Men.
Yeah, he did.
And people from these futures traveling back in time. And Cable was introduced in like 89, 90, 91, somewhere in there. And we're only 17 years removed from that. And I think we've been introduced to like 25 apocalyptic futures.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't even make heads or tails of like which ones belong to which time traveler anymore.
Exactly. And I couldn't even tell you, what timeline any of half the X-Men people belong to anymore.
Yeah, well, like Apocalypse is responsible for which terrible timeline? Like Bishop's, Cable's, or everybody's? Like no, X-Men are would you be averse to the idea of them taking the new X-Men, the all new X-Men, as being just put them in the past, and Professor X, instead of wiping their minds, just goes, no, let's keep them the way they are. I mean, just change everything.
To be honest with you, man, I feel right now that they're in such a deep dark hole with that.
Yeah.
That I don't know when they're ever going to return those kids back to the past.
Yeah, I don't know if they will.
Time should have broken in half by the time, like them staying in the future.
No, it's true. Well, but it already broke in Age of Ultron.
And we haven't dealt with that either.
No. Well, and we never will, because that was a Bendis idea, so nobody cares.
Yeah, well, I guess unless it was supposed to be tied into Age of Ultron, but like, oh man, I don't know. If I had my way, I would reboot X-Men from ground zero.
Yeah.
It's the 5 of them. We introduce Wolverine in year 2, and we just take our time and we go slow.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? They're not in the Marvel Universe. They're off on their own.
Oh, see, now I can't do that. I would never allow that.
They'll never do that. But see, to me, for the best story, the X-Men can't exist in a world where you have the Avengers.
Well, is it because they should be like that world's Avengers, or is it because people hate and fear people with powers, and it's like really weird that they have a problem?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's people being racist against these mutants that have no idea how to tell a mutant from a god.
Yeah.
Or Spider-Man.
Right. No, that's true.
But suddenly they don't care about Spider-Man, but they really care about Wolverine.
Yeah, well, or if they have a problem with Spider-Man, it's because of bad publicity, not because they think that he earned his powers from birth for no reason.
Yeah, it's the same. So for me, like I don't know, like that's kind of why it's kind of the reason why I've never had a problem with the Fox movies being separate.
Right.
Like I do think the Fox movies need a reboot as well, but I'm fine with them being in their own universe because it makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and even in the 90s, like when the X-Men were probably the most popular, it was like they were in their own universe because nobody could hold a case. Like the Avengers were like a D-list team. They barely crossed over, and if they did, like everybody, if you ever want to imagine, try to picture the Avengers and the X-Men teaming up, and the one image you have is that really cool. I don't remember who drew it, but it's Cap, Black Widow, and Wolverine's in like
Jim Lee.
Yeah, it's that Jim Lee cover.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible crossover, and the Avengers are entirely ineffectual, but we put Wolverine on the cover, and boom, suddenly it's a best-selling book. Like, they're practically in their own universe when they're popular anyway. So
agree. That's the thing, man. Like, think about that's the thing many people don't remember. Like pre-96, I would say 2008, nobody gave a damn about the Avengers.
Not even close.
The X-Men sold Marvel.
Yeah.
It was the X-Men.
Yeah, it was X-Men selling at the box office that made every other property get bought up, and they proved they could make them. And let me tell you something. When I'm in the theater watching X-Men in 2000 for the first time, and they go to Auschwitz, and they handle it without, like, hammy bullshit, I was like, oh, shit. Like, they fixed it. Like, we can actually have good comic book movies again. Now, that being said, I saw Blade a year before that, and Blade was a solid movie as well, but also it's a vampire movie, and, whatever.
Blade's a solid movie, too, yeah. Let's talk about a little bit of stuff. What about we got off topic.
We got off topic a little bit, but yeah.
I'm telling you, the X-Men are beyond broken.
I'll tell you what, we'll have to take a couple weeks. We'll each come up with our fix the X-Men pitch.
Oh man, I don't know if I have that pitch. That's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I want to be paid to write that pitch because that's hours.
That's work. That's legitimate work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's real work.
Yeah, I mean Marvel clearly won't do it. So.
Oh my God!
They're getting paid for it. No, that's fair. We'll just talk about how broken the X-Men are. We'll just complain the entire hour.
Well, hey, this will bring us back. Bring it back to X-Men. Let's talk about Scarlet Witch turning evil and killing all the Avengers.
Yeah, and I remember a lot of complaints about it from hardcore purists being like, Scarlet Witch would never do that, and she was never that powerful, and I never had any problem with that. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, it didn't bother me either, but I think the people that it bothered were the classic Avengers fans.
Yeah, I bet it really pissed off
the 80s fans.
It probably pissed off Kurt Busiek, and that's it.
Yeah.
Really quick, did you read that story? It was it wasn't really a story, but it was a reference. Somebody found an old fan letter in an old X-Men book. Mm-hmm. And it was written by Kurt Busiek, who was a fan, who was yelling at how he's going to quit X-Men because X-Men is a political allegory for people who have rights issues, and putting them in space is stupid, and this Phoenix Saga thing is a bunch of crap. It's really funny. But I was just thinking about that. How
I love Kurt Busiek, man. I've met him a couple times. He's lovely, and I love his Avengers run. That's great that somebody found that letter.
Yeah,
I agree with him.
You don't think they belong in space?
X-Men don't belong in space
because some of the best stories are in space. Yeah,
I don't care. I'll give you the Phoenix, but it's the only one I'm going to give you.
That's true. All right. Yeah. Well, no. And when you get into the third Summers Brother and everything, that's when you lose me.
Yeah, it's where War of Kings, where it just completely implodes.
That's fair. But anyway, I just thought that was funny how Kurt Busiek, before he was writer and creator and instrument, Kurt Busiek was just X-Men don't belong here, and this genre defining event sucks.
Yeah. Kurt Busiek, by the way, is the author of probably my favorite Avengers run of all time.
Is that Forever?
Well, Forever is really good, but it's during that time. It's the run that he did with George Perez after Heroes Reborn.
That was, you know what that was? That is emblematic of what Marvel needs to do, because it's just because Heroes Reborn. Heroes Reborn was such a calamity and such a mistake, and it's so poorly executed.
No, it wasn't. I will argue that. I will argue all day.
It is so terrible. But all right.
I will argue with you all day that Heroes Reborn was the best decision they could have made. Oh. You want to know why?
Yeah, I would love to know why.
I'll tell you right now. Here we go.
All right,
we're gonna go to another deep hole.
Here we go.
Nobody gave a flying damn about the Avengers, Fantastic Four, Iron Man. Their comics were in the toilet. Marvel considered canceling the Avengers book in 1994. That is insane. They considered canceling Fantastic Four in 94 as well. By doing Heroes Reborn, and I agree with you, the stories are not great. I can see that point right away.
Okay, fair enough.
The stories are not great. But by allowing Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld to basically kick these books in the ass, it made all of comic book fandom be like, oh, these characters can be cool. These characters can be hip. These characters can be relevant.
Right.
Because after Heroes Reborn, all of those events sold like crazy. All of their books were boom. And to be honest with you, like I said, that's where we get the Kurt Busiek Avengers run, which I contend is the greatest Avengers run of all time.
Yeah.
The Mark Waid Cap run is okay. It's not great.
It's still pretty solid. It's better than it was before Heroes Reborn, though, and that's the thing. For me, I think
they're all better post Heroes Reborn.
Yes, and I think that Heroes Reborn, I would I like that it exists. I don't think it's good, but I think it reminded everybody what they were losing. You know, it's one thing to cancel a title that's not selling very well and just having it unceremoniously disappear. It's another thing to take these time-honored characters that kind of matter and are representative of your company, and then saying look at how cool and rad they are if Jim Lee gets to draw them, and everyone goes, this is not what I want. This is not what they should be. And then you take it away, and then you give them to people who actually like give a damn about these characters. Because Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld, I don't think they really liked those characters as much as they liked the idea of getting that kind of exposure and like having the chance to just kind of like play with those characters, like having kind of carte blanche to play with them.
But by doing that, it allowed a lot of interesting concepts, because that's a problem that you can have in storytelling. You can put, especially legacy characters, you can put legacy characters in a box, and you never want to break these characters out of that box.
Yes.
And as soon as you do that, it's the death of storytelling.
That's
By the way,
true.
I want to call out one of Danielle Duval says, so Jason's defense of Heroes Reborn was the New 52 argument. Explain your point better.
Explain yourself. Well,
because,
I guess
I think you're coming at me. And I want
to respond. Let's hear it.
Line up your bullets.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
I also have it's funny. My point is actually the New 52 argument, where it's like,
okay, sure.
Where it's like you take Heroes Reborn, you make it different, new, and you throw away the continuity, and you remind everybody how much you don't like that, and then you bring it back, and then everybody likes that more. That is kind of New 52 rebirth for me. It's like you take the things that you throw away the things that matter because you think nobody really cares about them, and then you put it out and then you put it out, and people go like, "Oh, wait a minute, I actually really do miss that. Like I actually did care about that, as it turns out." And then they go, "Oh, you did? Well, here it is again, and now we've fixed it." Like
I'll give you that argument on a couple of things.
I mean, like Superman,
because I don't see that as being the New 52. It's so funny. I find it so hilarious now that like everybody like wants to crap on New 52 because Rebirth is around.
Right. I will say,
as much as
I've been crapping on New 52 since New 52, so don't, like I've been consistent.
Then I'll give it to you. But I'm not saying just you. I'm saying like
Right.
I'm noticing that's like kind of a trend now.
No, it's true. Yeah.
Because it's the old thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? There was a lot of good stuff in the New 52. No matter what you want to say, like, and yes, they lost their way. But also like New 52 is responsible for some stuff that without New 52 we'd have no Court of Owls.
I agree.
Without New 52, we would not. You wouldn't have this Wonder Woman movie, actually, because a lot of that origin in the Wonder Woman movie is coming from the New 52.
That's too bad.
I love Brian Azzarello's Wonder Woman New 52.
You and Tiffany, man, I am.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's so good. It fixes all the problems of Wonder Woman.
That's fair. Listen, the reveal of Wonder Woman's lineage, I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, I concede that was cool. I'm not a huge Brian Azzarello fan overall, though. So that's just me.
Me neither. But that one kind of surprised me. So
Yeah.
like there are a lot of stuff of
From New 52 that like
of the New 50. There's a lot of good elements in the New 52. Now I would say that New 52 and Heroes Reborn is kind of different for me. They're not comparable to me because. New 52 wasn't controlled by one person.
No, that's true. And they didn't like New 52 wasn't all flash and little substance. It wasn't like
exactly, and that's what Heroes Reborn was. Heroes Reborn was give it to these artists who probably shouldn't be writing.
Yes.
You know.
And then saying like, but isn't it cool that the thing looks like Bad Rock?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now
that's
the problem,
fair.
the problem is that like, and somebody just brought it up in the comments, is the fact that I think the biggest problem with the New 52 is that they didn't stick with the stories like they're doing with Rebirth.
Yeah.
You know, that was the problem. Like it was like, you know, we're gonna stick with this. Like, you know, Superman single, we're gonna hold to it. Like we're gonna do it. You know, because I actually really like Grant Morrison's Action Comics as well. Like, T-shirt Superman. It's awesome.
I dug it for a good 2 or 3 issues. I think the best thing that came out of that Action Comics run was getting Rags Morales more work. But
true.
You know, but I don't know about I mean,
but yeah, that's the thing. Like, you know, and you were talking about like trying to fix the X-Men. It'd be interesting to see if there would be a Heroes Reborn solution.
Yeah.
To the X-Men, because that's what the X-Men need right now. Is they need a clear slate.
Yeah.
And a really strong voice.
Now, I would take a Heroes Reborn approach to the X-Men where you take like some X-Men architects, not Chris Claremont, he's too close to it, but you do something where you're like, you give it to these really, really talented, competent people, and they put the X-Men in this other universe. You reboot everything, and then you heroes return it, where you bring them back into Marvel, now all polished and new.
Kind of a Legion Lost kind of thing.
Then. Yeah, something like that. Like, that'd be kind of cool, I think. I know that wasn't, I don't think that was Marvel's endgame, but I think it could become one.
By the way, I want to give Elric in the chat said, New 52 didn't go far enough. It needed to be a total reboot, right down the Dick being Robin again. And that's I am 100% agreement with that. That was my biggest problem with the New 52 is that Batman and Green Lantern history still happened.
That's my argument as to why like you would still get Court of Owls, because Black Mirror happened before New 52, and like I think Scott Snyder had Court of Owls ready to go, and it works in the context of all of Batman's history to have Court of Owls. Mm-hmm. But
you know what? We're in DC Rebirth now, and it all works out.
So it doesn't matter. It's all it's a moot point.
I love how somebody just said, like, what happened to the Heroes Turn Bad topic?
I know, right? Well, this is more interesting. So, apropos of that, did you see? This is totally off topic. As you can tell, everybody, Jason and I don't get to talk very often.
That's right.
Did you get it? Did you see that Marvel did variant covers on all their X-Men books where they just took the card art by Jim Lee and recolored it? I think that's awesome. I think it sucks because, like, Jim Lee ain't getting a dime for that shit, but which really sucks and is like a real problem, and it's like indicative of the main Marvel problem, which is that they don't care. But I also love that art, and I want it all the time. And so seeing Jim Lee's X-Men being put out like in front of you with recolored art, because his art is just as good 25 years ago as it is now. So I mean, it's great now. I'm not saying he hasn't changed or gotten better, but like it was still fucking awesome 20 years ago.
Well, that's the problem isn't that the last time that
X-Men were good?
That everybody gave a damn about the X-Men?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people still give a damn about the X-Men, but like people gave a damn and it was actually comprehensible.
Is it possible? Would it be possible for them, or would it be a conflict of interest for Marvel to say, Jim, would you like to draw some stuff for us, like new stuff? I know that he's a DC guy now, but like it's all green. Like,
I'm very certain that would never happen.
Really? You think it would never happen? I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like,
I mean, because he's the DC publisher now, so you have to treat him as kind of a DC exclusive.
Right. Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Is kind of the way you have to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, like I said, like I kind of thought that was kind of bad taste. Like when they published his art, I was like, come on, guys, there have been plenty of X-Men artists between him and now.
Yes.
You know,
I think that if they had written him a check for it, it would be totally cool. I like seeing the art, but I think they should have gone full tilt with it. Like I think they should have been like, Jim, we're like, bring him into the conversation. Listen, we'd like to do this kind of renaissance for X-Men, and we'd like to talk to you about it, and we want to use your old art.
And that's one of the problems with work for hire is that he signed off on that artwork a long time ago, and it's theirs.
Yeah, you know? I mean, you know what's funny though? I was just watching a video of Todd McFarlane's doing all these new like Facebook Live videos.
I love them.
They're so great. But
good.
He was talking about how Marvel mailed him like the okay, so the top left-hand corner of every comic book used to be where there was like a little box. I'm explaining this to them. Like used to be like a drawing or a little like scene, a little diorama of the character of the book. And used to be drawn by, I think Mike Zeck or somebody drew like Spider-Man kind of just standing there or like running. Mm-hmm. I know it's not Mike Zeck now that I think about it, but whatever. But the point being that Spider-Man was doing this really static image, and McFarlane's like, do you mind if I draw that little corner box? And they were like, go for it. So he drew this really great and lovely image of Spider-Man hanging upside down in the corner. Mm-hmm. And they, like maybe a year ago or less, like mailed him the original sketch of that art that he did for them.
Oh, that's cool.
They were like, we're going through the office and we found all this stuff and like, it's yours. And they mailed it back to him, so I'm like, that made me think, oh, maybe Marvel is changing up their methods. But then the fact that like Jim Lee ain't getting a dime for that X-Men cover makes me think, no.
Yeah, for several of them. All right, let's talk about, I'll bring us back around to topic here.
Please do, yes.
Have you read the Injustice digital comics?
Yes, I've read up to year 4.
Okay, I've read through year 5 as well. I've read them all. So, nice. And the new one, Injustice 2, is actually pretty damn good.
I hear it's great. I mean, like, it got great after, like, year 1.
Mm-hmm. It did. It's surprising because usually tie-in books are terrible.
And it pretty much was for like the first few issues, but then out of nowhere somebody's like, "Oh, wait a minute, nobody cares. Like we could do whatever we want," and they gave it to like talented people. Yeah.
What do you think about the Injustice universe? By the way, I'm really excited for the game, but like let's keep it in the comic book world.
Right.
What do you think about that? Because there are some things in that comic where you have to look at it and you're like, okay, I don't think Superman would act like this, but I understand that they have to lead this to the video game, so I'll give you a pass.
Right. Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think that it's basically just Crime Syndicate, but they...
Oh, that is a good call.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like Justice Lords and Crime Syndicate, but I think to sell the game, it's easier to say Evil Superman than like Ultraman or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's great, and I love the portrayal, and Superman... I think it takes less of a leap than the Justice Lords episode when from Justice League Unlimited, when Superman kills Lex Luthor and he just says, "I feel great," and I'm like, no, Superman would not be like, "I just murdered a man and it felt liberating." Like that's all I needed to do was murder somebody that I hate, and it suddenly opened up a whole new door of opportunity for me. Like no,
yeah, when the event that happens in the Injustice comic about him accidentally beating Lois to death, you're just like, oh, okay, I understand why he snaps.
Right. And her unborn baby, of course. Like,
yeah, and the unborn baby.
Yeah, no, that is enough to make Superman like legitimately go crazy enough to make really, really bad decisions that will snowball into more like evil decisions. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where the second one goes, because right now in the comics it's and spoilers for the Injustice 2 comics, guys. You haven't read it, but I'm going to tell you. There's only 3
here
issues.
It comes.
There's 3 issues. If you play the game, you automatically get spoiled.
Right. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Because this is a prequel comic again.
Okay. Okay.
So it seems like a lot of it's just like trying to keep Superman in his Red Sun prison. And then in the most recent issue, they introduced an evil Batman. Like there's somebody dressing up as Batman, and he's trying to get Superman out of prison.
Yes.
So... I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go. Like, I don't really know, besides the game, like, where they're going with it with Brainiac and stuff like that. It kind of makes it seem like that evil Superman and Batman might have to put their differences aside and team up.
Which, I mean, that seems like the next logical step. You had 5 years of this comic where they're always at odds with each other, where they never have a common ground at all. And... So yeah, the next story that you could write for that makes like for interesting tales going forward is that.
Yeah, and especially in that universe too, when they especially in that comic book series, there are several moments where they really prove to you that Bruce and Clark are still friends.
Yes.
And because if you look at some of the stuff that Clark does in that prequel series, you'd be like, he would kill Batman in seconds.
Right. But he doesn't because they're friends. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
No, I love that, and I like the preservation of character. While some characters behave slightly out of character or like marginally in a way where they need to be, it's convenient for the story.
Well, and also because they have to line it up to the game.
Exactly, it has to line up. I think that it's done in a way that is, it's earned, and I think it's fair because like. They're still being true to the core of their character. They're, if they're not being perfect representations of the character you find on the original comics, they are, decent enough approximations where it's okay, and it's you can put it aside and you can just enjoy the story because you do. I legitimately just like it. I just think it's a cool story, and I'm not
Those games, man, are that like I'm so excited to play that game next week. I played it like a couple times and. Just because I was so surprised at how good the first one was. Like, because I literally did feel like I was playing, like, a Justice League comic book come to life.
Yeah. I felt the same way about DC versus the Mortal Kombat universe game.
Yeah, that's a fun game, too.
Yeah, I think that without it, you don't have Injustice, because I think they acquired... I think Warner Brothers acquired NetherRealm after that, or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Now NetherRealm's all his baby, and if Injustice 2 sells as well as I think it's going to sell, then we're definitely getting Injustice 3.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, just like they say, just like there's sure as God made little green apples, you're going to get another Batman Arkham game in some way.
We're going to get some different it may not be like, it may not be a hero, it may not be Batman specifically.
Yeah.
But like Rocksteady is probably definitely going to do like another DC game of some type.
They've gotta. Like,
so
yeah.
There were all those rumors for years. Remember, there were like all these crazy rumors about this Arrow game that supposedly that was going to happen.
Well, the Arrow game, and I think the Arrow movie, and all that, like all these ideas going around about like them kind of pushing Green Arrow in a different media direction. Yeah. I don't know.
Are there any other evil heroes that we're forgetting?
Jason Todd.
Ah, good choice. Yes.
Jason Todd, good guy.
Much better evil.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's much better as a costume hanging in the cave, but
yeah, that's true.
I prefer him being I prefer him being Batman's greatest failure than any story that he's in. But
I agree with you.
He's a cool character. Like, look, you can tell good stories using a bad idea. I completely can see that point. And I don't even say that it's a bad idea to bring him back. I just say that as a purist and as a fan myself, I prefer him as a image, as an icon in the cave, as opposed to that. But yeah.
I get it.
Hulk, also Maestro, great villain.
Oh, yeah.
Is cool. I don't think we ever finished our Scarlet Witch talk, but yeah, Scarlet Witch is cool.
I don't know. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Superboy Prime, somebody brought up.
Yeah, people said that a lot, like in the pre-show. Like, did he ever have another time? Like, when, like, does anybody remember the good Superboy Prime? Because I think they were only publishing that book in like the 50s.
And then maybe Crisis, but like, yeah,
he didn't even do anything in Crisis.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically almost always been a villain.
Yeah, like he was a Superboy in stories that don't matter, and then he was a bad guy. I think he's a great character. Like, I think I really like what they did with him. Not where they took him, but like Infinite Crisis is awesome. I don't know. I liked Infinite Crisis. I found in, the further away we get from it, people are like, Infinite Crisis was garbage and stupid. And I was like, really? Was it? I thought it was kind of cool.
It's okay. I think Infinite Crisis is fine. The problem is that unless you know DC continuity, you're kind of lost.
Well, that's true. I mean,
and you have to know Crisis on Infinite Earths, or else that first page, the first issue in page, has no power.
Right. No, that's true. No, although any Crisis has like that's.
Oh, true. Sure. Yeah.
I like it though.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, there you go, everybody.
I think we put this topic to bed.
I think we did. I think we took it to bed like half an hour ago. We were like, anyway.
Well, we almost went into like another show, another completely different Elseworlds Exchange podcast.
I know, but X-Men, it was great.
But I still say we can do that episode.
I think so. I think oh no, we didn't get to follow it to its logical closure point. So yeah, there's definitely still room for that. So, but hey, listen, cool. Thank you for hanging out with me, man. Good show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And thank you guys for watching. Of course, what's happening on Jawiin that we can check out, or anything you're proud of that you want to talk about?
We are building towards the Flash finale, our Flash recaps. We always do those. And then after that, we're going to try to maybe do some Wonder Woman origin videos. You can find all that over at youtube.com/Jawiin, Jawiin. And then, of course, our podcast, Geek History Lesson, is always on iTunes. And that's a big fun time.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
Nice stuff. Over here on ComicPOP, you can check us out. You can check out this episode. And later on today, we're going to be releasing a new episode of Back Issues on Superman Rebirth, The Son of Superman. So. Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Those are current issues.
It's current. Issues. It's not too back, but it's still in a trade, so it counts. Whoa.
Oh, hey.
Plus, there's a lot of backstory. As I discovered, like in the first 20 minutes of the episode, I'm like, so New 52 Superman dies, and then old Superman shows up, but then it turns out they're both the same Superman. Like, that was a whole thing.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. I like to just ignore that part.
After 20 minutes of explaining, I go, but they don't know that at this point, so really you could just forget what I just said. It's awful. But yeah, check it out. And thanks for hanging out with us, guys. And
nice.
Yeah, we'll have to schedule that next episode.
We definitely do.
So long, everybody. Thanks for watching.